What's up, y'all? I am back. So, the DC video I'm gonna still do, but I decide I'm gonna push that later this week. Because that's like a rant video, and I can hold off on that. But another thing I got planned is this. I decided I'm gonna do a random review because I kind of needed a video to do today and tomorrow. So I was like, I was gonna initially because I am gonna be starting to do some Keanu movies. Like I'm gonna kick that off with like the Matrix trilogy since I haven't watched it and I'm refused to watch it. This newest Matrix, but I will do that next week. So what I've decided is I'm gonna review. I know what you did last summer, and I still know what you did last summer. Since there's only two movies, I know there's like a third one, but it's like that one's basically a spinoff. Like it's essentially a spinoff. Jennifer Love Hewitt isn't in it. Freddie Bitch Jr. isn't in it. Like no actual characters from the previous movies are in it. So there's no point in reviewing it. So I'm only reviewing the two movies. So I rewatched this one. I remember first watching this when I first discovered Jennifer Love Hewitt, and this is about because I saw it listed, and it was around after I just watched Scream, and this movie came out in that same era. Cause this came out like a year after, and it's actually written by the same guy, Kevin Williamson, who did the first the original Scream and the subsequent sequels. Besides, I think the third one. So, um, but definitely, I liked it initially, and I haven't watched it in like I think the last time I watched it was like 3 years ago, and rewatching it now, it's still good. I think it's still a decent slasher. The only weak aspects are the kills. I think, especially for a guy with a hook, I kind of expected more. I get it, but the thing is, even like the first Scream is pretty gore. I mean, Casey Becker's death. You got Steve's death. Those are both of them are pretty gory. But it's like for me, I expect more from a guy with a hook. But I like the setting. I like the urban legend aspect. I like the revenge. The music is meh. When we get like actual score, it's fine. But I understand it's the late. It's 1997. It's the still that like we're in that teeny boppy era of slashers. So I understand you got to play like popular songs. Um, I think the film actually has some good cinematography. Jennifer Love Hewitt does a decent job. I'll admit she's kind of flat in this movie in terms of like performance. And I love Jennifer Love Hewitt, don't get me wrong. I think she's a lot better in the second film. And I get what they were going for though, so I'll explain that more later. Ryan Philippe plays a good asshole character. Sarah Michelle Gellar is really good in this. I think, and yeah, fuck Freddie Prinze Jr. Fuck him. But yeah, this is still an all around fun slasher. I would definitely recommend it. If you like Scream, I definitely recommend this one. The second one isn't as good. I still think it's an okay slasher and it's watchable, but definitely the first one's like pretty decent. Ben Willis is not a bad killer, and I actually really dig the final act, which is on a boat, which is pretty interesting. So, but yeah, I'm gonna kick this review off. So, the film opens up on July 4th. We get this like big shot of I'm assuming Ben Willis like in his fishing uniform because you see him spin this little like I don't know what it is he's spinning, but then we're introduced to Julie James, which is played by Jennifer Love Hewitt. and her friend's Ray, played by Freddie Bitch Jr. Helen and Sarah Michelle Gellar and Barry, which is played by Ryan Philippe. Julie's friend Max, who has a thing for her, because the film opens up. They're like at this. Well, they're at this like kind of like pageant where they see Helen win because she's a pageant girl. Then they party at this party really quick. Then Barry gets into a fight with like Max, which is a really quick fight. Then they leave the party. Then they go to the beach. Tell this story about a guy with a hook, which kind of sets the tone about like this legend about this guy with a hook. And then the couples have sex, and then they leave. They leave, and then this is where you get the iconic "they hit Ben" scene. Well, I don't know if I call it iconic, but and they have to hide the body. So the group decides they're gonna hide the body because they don't want to risk. They don't want to go to jail. Then their friend Max passes by, and who got into a fight earlier. They play like Barry is drunk. Then he drives off. They decide to take the body and kick it into the river. I'll admit this scene is done well when they try to kick him in the river. Ben, I'll just kind of spoil it. Ben wakes up and tries to grab Helen and grabs her like tiara. So Barry kicks him in the underwater and then swims down and grabs it. And I'll admit this scene is done well. When he grabs the tiara from his hand, Ben's eyes open up. He's like all covered in blood, and his eyes open up. I'll admit that's actually a genuinely. It didn't scare me, but I still like gotta give props. Like that, if you've never seen this movie, that I can see that getting somebody. Like his eyes just open up, and then like Barry swims up, gives her back her tiara, pretty much forces the group to agree to a pact. Everyone agrees besides Julie initially, and then he kind of like forces her forcefully. I'll just say that, and she agrees, and then time jump happens. We're now a year later, and I'm assuming it's on Wikipedia. It's saying 1997, so we're a year later, and Julie is in college, and she goes home for the summer, and the friends are no longer friends, and you could tell she was deeply affected by what happened. And I guess I kind of will start it here. Like, I like her character, and I saw I don't remember where I saw this article, but somebody was saying that basically that Sarah Michelle Gellar should have been the lead because they felt like Julie was kind of a boring character, and I can understand the point. I love Jennifer Love Hewitt, don't get me wrong, but I do think she's kind of boring in this movie. Like, sorry, my nose is itchy. But yeah, like she's kind of flat, but I get what they were going for. What they were going for was because she had a problem from the jump, doing that whole hiding what happened instead of she wanted to take him to the hospital. She wanted to do all that, but she was almost like pressured. So I can understand what they were trying to go for that, but that could lead to her character kind of being a bore, and she's not as like exciting compared to like I think she's a lot better in the second film, to be honest. But I get what they were going for. That's why I say she's kind of fine in the movie. So Julie goes home, and you could tell she's deeply affected by what happened. Gets the note. This is where we first get the note that says the iconic "I know what you did last summer." Then she goes to Helen, who now works tracks down Helen, who now works at like some store, some clothing store, and they go to Gary's house. Who Gary and Helen have now broken up, and they go to uh, Barry's house, and they talk about what happened, and Barry like kind of plays it off like, oh, it's a fucking joke, and then Barry realizes, oh, it might be Max because Max was there that night. So Barry goes to Max's job, who works as now a fisherman, because they were in. This apparently is set in North Carolina, which is interesting. I thought this would have been like in like Rhode Island or something, like one of those states where it's very like seaside. So not Max. Barry confronts Max, forcefully saying like, "I will kill." He says he'll kill him, grabbing a hook, which that's foreshadowing. Um, then after that, Barry kind of leaves, and they see Ray, who Ray now is also a fisherman, wants to talk to Julie, but Julie clearly doesn't want to be with him. She's still kind of like mad about what happened. And I'll admit, this aspect of the film I did not care for. I already don't like Freddy as it is, as a person, for other reasons. But it's just, he doesn't work in this movie for me. He's boring. Like, and I think what they were going for is, because you could clearly, everyone else is like rich, because even one of the lines is in the beginning where he's talking about like, I'm not like you guys, I don't have like just money like that. So, but yeah, anyway, I didn't care for the relationship stuff. It felt kind of forced in the movie. But so Julie runs off because she doesn't want to be with Ray. We see Max put a hook on the ice, which that's Porsche. I'll admit that's done well, because then he walks by, the hook's now missing. Max gets now. This is the first kill of the film, and Max gets killed by a figure in a fisherman outfit, in a slicker. Which the kill is okay. It's not a horrible kill. It's decent, but it's like, this is a hook. I kind of expected a bit more. Like, you could be a bit creative with like a hook, in my opinion. But anyway, so after that, Barry gets a note after, training it, working out at the gym, and then his car gets stolen, and then he chases the guy in his car, but then because the guy is backing up, but then the car just stops, and then now the car chases him, and then we get like kind of like, I'll admit, it's actually a pretty cool scene. Chases him and actually rams him through. I am gonna question though, how the fuck didn't he die? Not even if he didn't die, he should have got really fucked up, because he got rammed through like a building. And while this happened, Julie and Helen are investigating what happened, because they, instead of going to the police. So actually, before that, after Barry Barry gets injured. He and Ray and the gang and the group are at the hospital, and he refuses to go to the cops. So Julie decides to do some research, and Ray clearly tries to talk to her again, and she kind of walks off. And then her and Helen go and find newspaper articles. They think the guy they ran over, his name's David Egan, which is important. I'll get to that later. And they meet with his sister Missy at her house, playing like, oh, we needed our car got taken out, we need to call AAA. And she explains that the family was devastated, and that a friend named Billy Blue visited to pay her respects, and then they leave. And Julie and Julie and Helen have a confrontation because Helen's like wondering why aren't we cool anymore, and you could tell Julie's still very like I can understand like I mentioned I get what they were going for, but she kind of is flat. But at the end at the same time, I'm not gonna complain because I get to look at Jennifer Love Hewitt for like an hour and a half. So that night, the killer sneaks into Helen's house, and after Helen and her sister get into an argument, next morning Helen wakes up and her hair's all cut. Her hair got cut and she got a letter and a broken mirror that says Sue, basically implying you're pretty much next. And Julie finds Max's corpse in her car, and then she goes to Helen's, who is with Barry, but then the body's missing. Then Ray, who shows up, gets attacked because now they're Barry's starting to suspect Ray because he's a fisherman, and but Ray mentions he got a letter too. Then Julie goes back to Missy's to investigate further, while I think um, while Barry and Helen have to go to a parade because it's 4th of July. So this is where we get the reveal, pretty much, that David Egan actually did commit suicide, because there is a line where earlier Helen mentions that the guy might have wanted to commit suicide because he was in the middle of the road, and this is Julie tries to tell Missy that it was her that killed David, but then this is where it was revealed David actually drowned. So this is actually where it's kind of like David Egan is the pretty much the a red herring, in that no, it wasn't him who actually got killed. Um, so I mean, I like that this film didn't try to be a screamer off. The only you do get like kind of a reveal in the end, kind of, but I think they do a good job of doing their own thing. Like you do have like a red herring, like they make you think David Egan's this guy that they hit is actually the killer. Nope. Turns out he committed suicide. It's this other guy. Um, then while at the parade, um, while they're on Missy's on the parade, she sees a guy with a hook hand, and then later that night at the beauty pageant, Helen witnesses Barry being. So this is Barry getting killed. The kills are very weak in this movie. I'm sorry. That's like the one aspect I will admit I don't like. The kills are very weak, even for like 90 slasher standards. Like I understand, for example, right? Ben Willis is a human. He's not like Jason, or he's not a Michael Myers, where they can be creative with their kills because they're like supernatural beings. I understand that, but I kind of what, at least with a hook, I do kind of expect something a little bit better than than oh my god, like come on, because the most we get is with Barry. We didn't even really see him get killed. We just see a person get hit and like a little bit of blood. So Helen freaks out, and I'll admit this scene's actually really good when she's seeing him get killed. She causes a scene, but a police officer who gets there goes up and looks, but the body's gone. And the cop like basically is acting like, oh, nothing's wrong, but then there's like a scene where they cut to where you see like a pillar or part of stairs that you see like a blood drop. Then Julie that night researches more info on on David Egan, and then they look up Susan Willis, who died in a drowning. This is where he learns of her father's name, Ben Willis, or Benjamin Willis, and turns out he's a fisherman. So it was actually him they hit that night. So and then it turns out he actually is the one who killed David also. So I like that they do a good job of like doing this reveal, and it doesn't feel like a screamer. But the music, like when we actually get like the actual score, not like when they're playing songs. I think this actual score isn't bad. It's not amazing, but it's all right. Um, so the cop is trying to take Helen home, and then Helen's like trying to tell the cop like what happened, but then the cop stops and sees a guy in a slicker, gets out of the car to confront him, but it turns out it's the killer, Ben Willis. Kills her. We actually get a really good chase. I'll actually admit it's a really good chase. Chases Helen into Helen's store. Um, um, and chases her into the store where because it's the store where her sister works at, and then she tells her sister to like lock the back door while she tries to call the police. And then I'll admit this scene is really good. Like the sister goes in the back to lock the door, but he's already in the house, and you see this long shot, like her locking the door because there's like a screen, like there's a window, and then behind her is Ben, and I actually think a really good shot. Kills her, and actually probably my favorite kill of the movie, just because he's like, or the cop kills pretty good too, because you see like a bunch of blood fall out. So like that's like the goriest you'll kind of get in this. This where after he kills her sister, Helen's sister, way he just kind of carries her with his hook, like is pretty badass. Then the power gets cut. Helen runs downstairs, and there's like a bunch of like mannequins. Um, and attacks. What turns out one of the mannequins is Ben. Attacks her, chases her. She climbs out the window, jumps down, and tries to run through a parade, but ends up getting killed. Granted, it's kind of off screen. I think her should have been shown. I think if she's a major part of the movie. Same with Barry's. If you're gonna have characters like that get killed, you gotta show them getting killed. In like Barry, we kind of see you just see the hook, and with her, she just gets killed in an alleyway. You I do think it's done. This scene is done well though, because you're hearing her scream, but like there's fireworks, there's a whole parade going on, so I think that's done well. So after that, Julie realizes it's Ben Willis, goes to Ray. Ray, tries to say, oh, "Come on the bus." I mean the bus, the fucking come on the boat, and then, but it turns out his boat and she realizes Ray's boat is called Billy Blue and thinks he's the killer. So she runs from him, and he's following her. He's trying to say, "Stop, Julie! Stop, Julie!" And then he gets pretty much clothesline. A fisherman shows up, clotheslines Ray like he clips clothesline like a motherfucker. And I cheered. I fucking hate Freddie Bitch Jr. So he gets clotheslined, and then tells Julie to run on his Julie to run to his boat. And then this is where it's the reveal. This is Ben. It's actually Ben Willis. And then like she sees the articles and all that, and this is where he comes in and says basically the reveal. He chases her through the boat, and the boat's leaving the docks, and Ray has to follow her onto a boat. He gets on like a smaller boat, and gets on the boat while she hides. Like, um, you see throughout like the chase. I'll admit this chase scene's actually really good. I really like the boat setting. I think it's really interesting. The lighting is good. She goes in this like ice box basically where she finds the bodies of the people he killed. Ray gets on, but he gets knocked out initially. You know, he has a little bit of a fight with Ben while Julie hides, but Ben knocks him out. And then I think like she gets out, Ben gets knocks out Ray, and then chases Julie again. Um, but while this happens, he gets back. He regains consciousness and fights with Ben again, and ties like a rope to Ben's hand and raises it. And I'll admit this is probably one of the gore. And actually, you know what? This is probably the goriest scene. Raises up and his hand hits this thing, and basically his hand gets chopped off, and you actually see it, and then gets thrown in the water. The police show up. Then Ray says the reason he didn't tell her about what happened because he wanted to get her back, which I just did not care. I did not care for them as a couple. I didn't. That aspect I did not care for. I didn't care if he got her back ever in the end. And then the officer asks them like, "Why would a guy try to kill you?" Um, they say they don't know. And then they raise up and they find the only thing they find of Ben is his hand, and they say a body will turn up. Which this is I don't know if they had a sequel planned already, because pretty much the ending is Julie's back in college a year later. She's back in college, and she's on the phone with Ray. They're pretty much back together now, and she gets a letter, and she's like all scared, you know, because she thinks it's like another one, but it's actually like a letter for like an invitation to a pool party. Then she goes back in her shower, and then there's "I still know," and then like a fisherman jumps out. I don't know if that's like a sequel setup. Like that's how they usually do. It's like the Nightmare on Elm Street ending, where Freddy drags the mom, and this is just them to like let you know. And even then, they maybe were already planning on calling it "I Still Know What You Did Last Summer." So, and then the film ends. I I like this movie. It's a decent slasher. It's not Scream, but it was a fine slasher of the '90s. I would put it if I did like a favorite slashers list of the '90s. Scream would be number one. This one would be like maybe top five. It's not bad. I think the only issue I really have is I think the kills could have been better. Just because I expect you have a guy with a hook. He's not even just using a basic knife. He's using a hook. Come on, man. You can get some pretty gnarly kills with that. And I just don't even really feel like we got any. I don't know if maybe they just felt like they didn't want to go too violent with it. But I don't know. I still enjoy it. I like the dynamic between the group. Ryan Philippe, yes, he was pretty much just an asshole the whole movie, but it was still like a fun movie. I still all around like. I'm not gonna necessarily I like his character, but I like the dynamic between him and Sarah Michelle Gellar, who I can maybe agree could have been a. I think her death could have been a bit better. We should have seen her die. She died behind like a stack of like it was either tires or like trashes or something. It was I don't know. I think it could have been done a bit better, but Jennifer Love Hewitt was great. You know, she was an awesome. I don't. I think Julie's a likable character. She was like the only genuinely, I guess you can say like almost innocent character in this. I like the mystery aspect, and they try to do their own thing. They didn't just copy Scream. They could have just did a plain and blank, like a straight up copy, where something similar, like a killer, does like maybe a calling thing or something similar. Has a like, but they actually did their own thing with it. Ben Willis is an interesting killer. I like the final chase on the boat. I would definitely recommend if you like '90s slashers. If you like Scream, I think you'll like this one. It's not as good, but it's definitely a decent one. I'd give this one like an 8 out of 10. I had fun. I had fun with this one. I just think the kills could have been a bit better, but other than that, It's fine. Tomorrow I'm gonna be doing. I still know what you did last summer, which is the second one and the only ending. Cause I'll talk about it more maybe in the second video. That third one isn't really canon because the other characters don't come back. It's just they take the premise pretty much. So, but I definitely recommend it. But I'm gonna cheers and peace out.